This is our preview of the Sugar Bowl between Ohio State and Alabama, the national semifinal game being played on New Year's night in New Orleans. Two strong coaching staffs led by Urban Meyer and Nick Saban. Lots of names you would recognize as assistant coaches as well. We're going to talk to Michael Casagrande of AL.com and Bill Landis of Cleveland.com and ask them who has the strongest coaching staff. So Bill, who is it? And Michael, give us your answer.
Dan, I think the ultimate sign of a coaching staff's talents would be whether or not those guys get job offers to move on to other places. And obviously that's happened with Ohio State this year when you have Tom Herman, the co-offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach, who will be the coach at the University of Houston whenever this is all said and done. He's kind of playing the balancing game right now between the two schools, and he will see the Buckeyes through the playoff, however long that is. And then you have Ed Warner, a guy who was rumored as a candidate, top candidate for the job at Kansas this year. Co-defensive coordinator Chris Ash, who reportedly interviewed for the job at Colorado State. Luke Fickell, who obviously was the head coach at Ohio State for a brief time before staying on Meyer's staff as a defensive coordinator. When you have guys who other schools want, I think that's a good sign. And you have a couple of very good assistants at Ohio State who probably won't be here very long because, frankly, these guys want to be head coaches elsewhere. But in the meantime, they're doing some pretty good things for Ohio State. You look at Herman. Urban Meyer brought Tom Herman in here to bring an up-tempo element to the spread offense that Urban Meyer has used everywhere he's been. And that's obviously been very successful with the offensive numbers that Ohio State has put up this year. And the fact that Ohio State is on its third quarterback, if you go back to Braxton Miller, it's on its third quarterback and they're playing in the college football playoff. I think that speaks to Herman's resume. Ed Warner, a guy who was just named offensive line coach of the year for the second year in a row, really turned around a unit that had a lot of question marks coming into this season. Kind of made that unit gel into not quite what it was last year because that's a pretty lofty goal, but it's been very good down the stretch here, protecting the quarterback when it needs to and getting some rushing yards for Ezekiel Elliott. And then on the defensive side, you have Ash and Fickell. Chris Ash came in here to really revamp Ohio State's pass defense, and he's really done a great job of that. I don't think anyone would say the pass defense is a weakness at this point. Granted, it hasn't been tested a whole lot with the teams that Ohio State has played, but it has been better. Ohio State is more aggressive in the passing game. And then Luke Fickell is kind of in charge of the front of that defense, and I think you could argue that Ohio State's defensive line is one of the best in the country. I know some people thought it might be the best coming in. You have Noah Spence go down, that throws a wrench into some things, and I think they would admit they've underperformed a bit this year. But the front end of that defense with Fickell calling the shots, and then Ash on the back end really revamping that pass defense. I think you're looking at four guys in Herman, Warner, Ash, and Fickell who have done a tremendous job on this Ohio State coaching staff and are really, really a big part of why Ohio State is in this position.
All right, guys, you look at Alabama and their coaching staff. You've got Nick Saban, obviously in charge, but he's also got four assistant coaches that used to be head coaches. The most notable, of course, is Lane Kiffin, and he's come in and made a big difference with this offense. Really made it much more explosive, opened it up with the passing game. With a new quarterback, you bring a quarterback in who wasn't known as a passing quarterback, then he breaks all the passing records for passing yardage in the season, breaking A.J. McCarron's record from a year ago. So you've got on the offensive line Mario Cristobal, who was up-and-coming head coach at FIU before he was, for some reason, fired a few years ago and has not landed a head coaching job yet, but had a big impact on the offensive line these past 2 years. Kevin Steele coaching linebackers. It's a good staff. Kirby Smart, the defensive coordinator, was a hot name there for a few years as a head coaching possibility and can still be that in the future. But he's the highest paid, or he was until Will Muschamp was hired, the highest paid assistant in the country. So it's a pretty top to bottom, it's a pretty strong staff, some seasoned staff. They've been around for a while. Most of them have been around for at least a few years. Burton Burns has been around for, I think, the running backs coach for his entire stay here at Alabama. Kirby Smart's been around for a long time. So there's kind of a mix of the old and new, but Kiffin definitely has been the biggest splash on this coaching staff and has made the biggest difference this year with that offense.